What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020, Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dublin Plus Care. And also, I am a contributor to the Fly Nubian Queen YouTube network, which has over 550,000 subscribers. And also, coming very, very soon, a contributor to the Indie Soup Media OTT, or Over the Top Media Network, which has over a reach of over 1 million people. So as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. So before we go any further this morning, let's check out some things. Always, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube. Also hit the notification button so you get notified when these epic conversations happen. Also, follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Also, if you want to advertise your business, product, or service on the Morning Vibe or any of the platforms that I host, please feel free to reach out to me at dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And finally, join the Discord group. I've been putting up, for people who join the Discord group, you get a lot of extra content. I still have to put in Wayne Harris's top tips for Canadians when it comes to finances in 2024. And I'm also putting the links to the replays of these conversations. So if you're a member of the group, all you have to do is, if you miss an episode, all you have to do is go in there and it's posted there for you. So let's talk about something else coming up on this Monday show. We have makeup artist extraordinaire Faces by Pureness going to be joining us, finally getting her on the platform. Not only talk about her makeup career doing makeup, but also a phenomenal weight loss story. I hope she gets into that. So Ray should be on in just a moment. I know a lot of people love chiming in when Ray McMillan is on, and we are going to have him talking today about real estate investing risks and how to avoid them. Also, too, coming up this weekend, just want to promo, fill up the dead air time. We have Saturday evening Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Pacific, Prime Time with Aisha and Lala, where they give their takes and POVs on things that are going on in the U.S., political, non-political, and maybe sometimes some global stuff. And Sunday afternoons, we have Black Canada Talking, where I sit down. Recently, it's been with Cesar Nadima Musa, and he gives a Black Canadian view or lens on stories going on inside of Canada and outside of Canada. So if you haven't subscribed, especially to the YouTube channel, I suggest that you do. How has 2024 been treating you?
Very good. No complaints at all. I mean, I look forward to, the New Year's. You can start planning for what you plan to accomplish in the new year. So for me, it's always something to look forward to. You've had some experiences, you've had some challenges, you've had some successes, you've met a few new people, you've lost a few people. But for me, it's just, I'm not one for resolutions. I don't make New Year's resolutions. I have a game plan that I work every year. We have a plan to do certain things, and that's what I focus on. But I'm not one for, I'm going to the gym on the 1st of January, or I start saving money, or I start investing in the stock market. I think that's stuff you should do all the time.
Also want to give Ray kudos, also his son Stefan, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name. They hosted a great information session about real estate in the last week or so. So Ray, job well done by all three of you.
Yeah, that's Andrew Short. I've known Andrew for about probably 12 years. Great guy. It's interesting when he and Steph decided to collaborate, and Steph was telling me about this person he was speaking to. I had no idea who the person was. So we had a Zoom call where Steph was going to introduce me to the individual. And when Andrew came on, I'm like, man, it's you, Andrew? I was totally oblivious to who it was. But Andrew's a great guy. DF Insurance, he's been doing it now for about 15 years. Very professional, very knowledgeable. This is a great all-around person, We did a few information sessions about probably 10 years ago. Myself, another good colleague of mine, Barrington Lewis, a realtor, and Jelani Daniel. We had a 4-person panel. We did season 4 session went really, really well. But then everybody went on and did, a few things their own at that point in time, right there. That's where I first met Andrew.
Jelani Daniel. I've not heard that name in a long time. So, Ray, you're wanting to talk today about real estate investment risks and how to avoid them. So, where do you want to start on this topic?
That is correct. We've had a very turbulent last few years, starting with the global pandemic, and then the interest rate changes in 2023. There's got a lot of people sort of out of schools. So, as real estate investors, there are certain risks you have to be cognizant of. And there are mainly 6 risks that any investor should take into consideration as they start. The second is leverage. You've got location risk, owner risk, asset risk, and then you've got what they call financial risk. Market risk is what we experienced last year, where went through its own series of permutations, and the central bank started to raise interest rates on both sides of the border. So many folks who found themselves not prepared for those changes, those interest rate changes, found themselves in quite a quandary where they were completely stressed out. Because if you a property investor, mean you own a 1 unit or whatever refer to as one door as a single family, you would have been most impacted by that market risk, which is the interest rate risk. The other risks that are part of market risk are population decline, population growth, migration, out-migration, and that sort of stuff. So as a real estate investor, if you plan to scale up and own several properties or several units, and I use the word units instead of properties because one property can have more than 1 unit, 100 units. So if your intention is to be serious with what you do and own multiple units, then you really want to understand what market risk can impact you and how it will either help you to grow your growth. So understanding that is very, very important. The research is important. And, sometimes just going with your gut can also help you to allay some of the risks that you're facing. So the market risk we're focused on here mostly today is the interest rate risk, where we've seen rates go from probably sub 2% to somewhere between 5% plus. And many will ask, well, how would I have known to make changes to my mortgage to not be impacted by that sudden spike in interest rates? What is access to historical data? I can go back and let you know that rates go through cycles. So you want to have around 20, 30 years, which is the lifetime of most mortgages. So if you look back at the past 20, 30 years, there's a very high probability that sometime between your purchase date and your mortgage payoff, which is probably 25 to 30 years, those same occurrences will possibly happen again. So you have to insulate yourself to that process. So when the rates start to rise, you should not be shocked. Step 1 is when you do your mortgage qualification, do not qualify yourself at the lowest possible rate, because any change will impact you negatively, right? So you've got posted rate and contract rate. And many rookie investors base their analysis on the contract rate, which can sometimes be 2% lower than the posted mortgage rate. So you always want to do your analysis at the posted rate. And also for the claim of 25-year amortization, even if you get a 30 or 35-year amortization, because that can change in the future if you change lenders.
And that's what I feel like. You feel like you're the Harry Tubman of the mind.
I am.
I feel like I'm I'm one of the Harry Tubmans of intelligent Black people. Like, I want to liberate y'all from like being left behind and ignored and oblivion. Now, really, the rappers get all the attention. Seriously, does anybody else feel this way? Like ignorant Black people, they'll be all up, getting all the headlines on the Shade Room.
Overly sexualized Black folks.
Like the twerkers and the just people that don't always represent the best of us. The diversity. Like people like Dr. Vibe. Like everybody should know about people like Dr. Vibe. Dr. Vibe he's trying to do good work for Black people.
Dr. Vibe from Toronto. Good to see you, my brother. Dr. Vibe. Everybody follow Dr. Vibe. He has a great show. He's very good at what he does, and I have a lot of respect for him.
Okay, so let me hop into this. What's up, Dr. Vibe? How you doing? Everybody, if you see Dr. Vibe in the chat, everybody go follow the Dr. Vibe show. Dr. Vibe is a real smart brother and a good human being. I like the guy a lot, and he's very intelligent. And I think everyone should pay attention to what he's got going on. We got to shine the spotlight on the intelligent Black people out here that are really doing the good work. Don't just pay attention to the rappers and the celebrities. A lot of these people are losers. Your true winners are your people in your community that are really having your back, helping us to have stronger families and a stronger community. So Dr. Vibe is in that category. So you might see the Dr. Vibe show in this chat. If you see him, please go follow him. Okay. All right. So anyway.
Also, a few other things. Want to shout out Dr. Tachi is in the house from nice, warm Florida. Dr. Tachi is a host and producer of Mediascope, also the driving force behind Indie Soup Media. Mediascope has been going on for a while now. That was 7-8 years now. And it's the livest online show about media, tech, and pop culture. It's taking a hiatus right now till about the middle of next month. But when it's back, as always, you catch it 5 o'clock Eastern time on Instagram Live, and then 6 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram probably, and LinkedIn and Twitch and other platforms. So good to hear from you, Dr. Tachi, as always. How can one access the information that you're sharing with us today? Like you're saying, going back records wise, is this something that can be done online easily?
Yes, that is true. It was called an index chart, which gives you historical data on interest rates going back, I think, to the end of the Second World War. It tracks interest rates, bond yields, treasury returns, also tracks the S&P and the stock markets. So you can see where the rate curve, the interest rate lines intersect. Usually in a low interest rate environment, stock market yields are higher and the inverse. So you can track that stuff going back to probably around 1945. I recall back in the late 90s when I worked for a major bank, and there was a huge influx of wealthy Chinese coming from Hong Kong, as there was rumor that Hong Kong was going back to mainland China, because there's a lease agreement between I think the British and mainland China with Hong Kong. A lot of Chinese were coming to the city. Most of them were very, very affluent. And one of my clients, a lot of my clients when I worked at the bank I worked for, were mentors of mine. I watched them. They were very wealthy individuals, and they were unknowing mentors to myself as I watched the way they navigated financial markets. And at that time, rates were probably around 7%. And he only had 6-month convertible mortgages. So the product you choose can help you to basically, quote unquote, play the rate game. There are also other products out there, a combination of different mortgage products. So you can have a 5-year mortgage, or you have a mortgage, that has different terms in it, up to 3 or 4 different products in that mortgage. So let's say you have a $500,000 mortgage. Let's say $200,000 of that mortgage at a 2-year term at another $150,000 over 5 years. You can have $50,000 over 10 years. You can have part as a home equity. You can have part a variable rate or adjustable rate mortgage, and each of them have different maturity dates. So as you build your investment portfolio, you want to choose mortgage types or a combination of mortgage products that have staggered maturity dates. So you aren't always panicking or pulling your hair out at the slightest market change. You don't want to buy property in a neighborhood that is being depressed, and as continue to be depressed unless there is, as the market can be depressed today if there is major employers are coming in or there's a major influx of investor money. I talked about the commercial industrial space. That's tick. And we've seen it in many parts of many cities, many large cities across North America, where you've got a depressed neighborhood because sometimes a major employer left one industry cities. There's no major banking, finance, and government around it. It's usually either car manufacturer, some sort of manufacturing. So many of them sort of took a nosedive during the 90s, their operations into Mexico. In recent times, we've seen a lot of stuff coming from China. There's not a lot of stuff being manufactured in North America anymore. When you see North American manufactured products, you're usually quite surprised. I mean, some of the best men's footwear in North America. Like you go into a shoe store today, I'm not going to call any name, but everything you see in there is made in China, right? So our industries have really suffered. So you want to really understand history in your city. If you're in a port city and they're expanding the ports and they're bringing in new logistics companies, there's jobs. People are coming into your city, and those jobs are usually better paying jobs. If they're opening up new hospitals, I think I spoke this in one of our last conversations. So those are the kind of market things you look for as you build and expand your investment real estate portfolio.
For the average individual, are the barriers to getting involved in real estate investment easier than it was even 10 or 15 years ago?
The challenges, I don't think it's easier or harder. It's different. You've got the landscape is constantly evolving. You've got migration, which impacts it. I mean, for example, in the large Canadian cities, we have a significant new immigrant coming into this country, which is and most of them are wealthy, and a lot of them have become real estate investors as well as speculators. So it removes it makes the playing field a little uneven for folks who are local with not as deep pockets. And that's why you have to really analyze other locations and understand markets, continue to build your portfolio and understand what mortgage products are available, what you want to do. I mean, I speak constantly of buying apartment buildings, small apartments, 16, 20, 30, 40 units. And the reason I do that is because the financing process can be a lot easier than trying to buy two, and the return is significant, right? So it's a matter of changing or pivoting as the markets evolve. Markets are going to constantly landscape evolve regardless of the industry you're in.
Over the years, have you seen the demographics of real estate investors change? Because you mentioned in your last comment, there's a lot of immigrants coming in with money. Are you seeing more immigrants getting involved in the real estate investment? Are you seeing younger people, older people, etc.?
The real estate investor profile is very diverse. In my experience, I think I mentioned this in one of my conversations, a lot of my clients are female, over the age of 40, single. And many see real estate investing as a way to secure their retirement. most of the ownings. Some will venture into the small multifamily, 3 to 4 units. And then some may buy the secondary home. Most of them are buying either small condos because the management process is very easy. There's no real maintenance. And then those who are a little more brave will step into the small multifamily arena. And that usually is a bit of stress for them because their management doesn't have a real estate, which you have to have a lot of hands-on, management, dealing with multiple tenants in the same property, dealing with maintenance issues. Usually they're older homes, and there's a lot of money to put into it to get it up to where you want it to be. And then there's younger people. Many of those are children of immigrants who never really achieved the North American dream. They didn't really, acquire a whole lot. Just the house they lived in, probably a very small RSP. And if they worked in healthcare or worked in education, they had a pension. And then when they passed away, you've got 4 siblings. House got divided among 4 people. Usually there was chaos because there was no will and estate planning. So a lot of the younger people now, probably a little older than 35, that's a very significant demographic. And also there's a lot of information out there today. There's a lot of podcasts. People are constantly talking about generational wealth. So that young population is very, very motivated. Then I find that the demographic, who's my demographic, between the age of 45 and probably 65, who migrated from the Caribbean, our interest is a little different. We tend to want to invest back where we came from. So for my clients who came from parts of Africa and parts of the Caribbean, because we are still very African or very Caribbean in the way we live, our interest is to take our asset here, sort of liquidate some of it or leverage it, and move the asset into invest back in whether it's Ghana, Nigeria, the Congo, Somalia, Ethiopia, Jamaica, Guyana, Barbados. I see a lot of that with my clients who are probably closer to retirement, considering retirement, and a couple of things. One, the cold is not part of their agenda. They're not interested in being in a very cold environment. And 2, it's expensive to retire here. If you didn't have the maximum pension contract, you were probably a contract employee most of your life, or you were self-employed, and you're now close to 60, and realize, okay, all I've got is this house, and I can't afford to maintain a decent lifestyle retiring. But if I cash out on this house, I walk with what house prices are in the GTA. I mean, 1.2, 1.3 million. I go back to the Caribbean, I either build or buy, and I spend $350 US. I've got a real nice place now that I can use either part as a short-term rental, part as a vacation rental, and just have a very, very comfortable lifestyle. So that's what we see now. One of the other challenges you have is leveraging. Most people don't have the actual cash to go and buy multiple properties. You have to borrow it. And the risk you can run is to over leverage yourself, where you're taking money out of your own to buy investment real estate. And it's very, very important that you put those numbers down. And I think a mistake a lot of people make is that they only focus on the property they're buying and what that's going to cost them. But they forget that they took out this $200,000 from their home in a HELOC or a second mortgage. And the numbers are usually very, very confused. When clients come and sit with us, they always forget one of the liabilities. And you run into a situation where you've got, this liability against, you either borrowed against your investment portfolio or against your home, or you borrowed from your business. And then you've got these properties you're buying. And you have the numbers in the property makes sense, but you've forgotten that you've leveraged yourself, right? And you can make a mistake with probably one property. If you get into 2 or 3 or 4 properties, you made a mistake 2 or 3 or 4 times, you will find yourself crying out in pain, as many folks are today, because they never run the numbers properly. And that's why it's important and I keep stressing it all the time, to sit down with a mortgage professional, whether it's your bank, whether it's an independent mortgage advisor, and really work those numbers out to make sure that you're in the right path. Because I've seen many times where people have leveraged themselves to buy real estate and had to sell everything. And they barely managed to hold on their home, which is now mortgaged to the hilt, because they didn't do the numbers properly. So again, the investment process is not a 2-minute process. It took us probably a year and a half to pick up our first investment properties down in Florida. I've worked with some of my clients where the conversation went back and forth for a year or 2 years before they made a huge step. And if you plan to do it successfully, you've got to do it right. If not, you will find yourself in problems, a lot of problems too. Most people will take loan or borrow money from a relative in order to buy their first investment property or even their first home. So, I mean, if you've got a home worth $600,000, you've got a current mortgage of $100,000, you can access the equity up to $400,000 in that property, or 75 or 80%. This gives you access to about $300,000. Now, you can take that money out and buy any number of investment type properties. You can buy yourself a small fourplex. You can invest in a couple of pre-construction condos. You can invest in pre-construction homes. But it's important to understand that $300,000 debt, that equity into your home, comes with a payment every single month. So as you do your numbers in your rental properties, you have to be cognizant that you've got to service that debt. Now, if you're investing in pre-construction, which usually has a 4 or 5 year timeline to completion, you are servicing that $300,000 debt with the expectation that 4 or 5 years from now, the valuation of the unit you bought will be the price you bought it for, plus a few $100,000 to compensate the cost of that $300,000. Many people forget that. Many people sort of miss that part of the equation, right? And then if you decide to keep the property, what is the market rent, or what are the market rents in the event that you can't sell it and have to hold on to it? And we are in such an environment today where many speculative investors have bought properties that they now have to hold on to because the valuation is quite a bit less than what they anticipated when they bought it. And that brings us back again to market risk. So the leveraging, if you're going to leverage your properties, you have to really understand market risks to leverage effectively. And I'm not going to tell people not to leverage, because we deal with clients who do it all the time. But you have to really sit down and get your numbers really accurate to do it successfully.
Thank you for that, Ray. Really appreciate that. And again, this is why Ray, I regard him as an expert when it comes to mortgages. And, as he said, he didn't, I've put up on the screen and put it in the chat. If you'd like to get in contact with him, great. If not, he always says, get in contact with someone who is an experienced professional in this area. It's so important. Okay. So here's a question for you, Ray. Opal Inspire says, Ray, what are the risks with pre-construction homes?
The risks with pre-construction, there's several risks. One is delay in construction. So you buy a pre-construction, there's a home or a condo, and the builder tells you we'll close it in 15 months. And 15 months from now, there's not a pitchfork in the ground. They're still trying to get permits to do a lot of stuff. And they keep giving you these extensions. And if you buy any new construction, the one thing you want to do is take that purchase agreement and go and sit down with your real estate lawyer and understand it. Many buyers don't do that. And that is another form of risk, or possibly stupidity. But in that agreement, the builder is allowed to extend that deal without compensating you. And many times you will see a letter or some sort of communication come to you as by email or registered mail telling you that we've extended our closing date. We've pushed the closing date forward. So you've got your money tied up, 20% down payment in this property that is not closing. Then you have market risk that affects your construction. The market changes. So property value starts to correct. Rates start to go up. Your loan to value, which is the amount of money you can borrow based on the appraised value of the property, is now impacted, and you can't close your transaction. I am not a fan of pre-construction investment. Never was, never will be. Toronto has the most in the sky of any city in North America, probably any city globally when it comes to condominiums. Somebody's getting very, very rich, and it's not a lot of the buyers because most of the projects are delayed. Most of the projects are a nightmare. Most of the projects went people times, yet people continue to do it. If you will buy a $500,000 condo, you got to give that payment over 18 months. My opinion, my preference would be look to find yourself an investment property in a group of towns or university towns and put your money into that property instead. Close it 30 or 60 days from day one. Even if you barely break even, even if you get $10 a month positive cash flow, because now I can improve that property. Market rents are constantly increasing. I can renovate one of the units, change from 1 bedroom to 2 bedrooms, or from a 2+1 to a 2+2, and increase my rents. But I've got my $150,000 tied up with a builder for an extended period of time, and I have no idea where the future will go. And none of us have mastered the art of predicting the future. So let me live in the moment. Let me focus my investment portfolio in the moment, and I will create the future for myself. So I'm not into speculative real estate. I'm not into buying pre-construction. Now, to buy a home to live in a different conversation. And this concept of real estate invested, not buying to live in. So let's be very, very clear in that, first of all. We speak about real estate. If you buy a home to live in, then by all means, buy a pre-construction. You can choose your finishes. It's a brand new home. It's never been lived in before. It's a brand new subdivision. It's a different conversation. As an investor, I don't see the value in going into pre-construction units. I think it's overly speculative. I think it's high risk. And a lot of the sad stories you're hearing today, people can't close, losing their deposits, is all the folks who have really invested heavily in the pre-construction sector.
Denise says, Ray, I see that investors are buying land, building homes for lease only. Could a renter negotiate to rent to buy?
No, you see, that phenomenon is an amazing phenomenon. And for that's something anybody who wants to get involved in that process. I myself want to get involved in, where I want to build several units, purpose-built rentals, for rentals. There are several large investors who are buying hundreds of thousands of small homes in Jacksonville, Florida. Again, some very familiar with that. I spent a lot of time in Florida. There's a particular investor, I think they're actually Canadian, who has built a whole series of affordable type homes. They're 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms, and they're only built for rent. So they are not looking to sell that those units right now. They're looking to basically build them. Usually they build it hundreds at a time. They're looking to build them fully occupied because the value of that property changes as the rent increases. So you've got how they're going to build today, it's going to rent for probably $10.50 a month. And that's not in the Canadian market. I'm talking if you're south of the border in the US. That person there, I was asked that question, I think they're somewhere in Georgia. Put the question into context of where they're located. So you're looking at $10.50 a month in rent. By year 2, your rent's going to go to probably $1,200 a month. By year 3 or 4, you're on $1,400 a month. Along with your rent being increased, your property value is increasing, your debt is being paid down. Now, that investor many times will take that entire portfolio and start cutting it up and selling parts to other investors, and that's where you make your money. when I was looking at the property in Jacksonville, there were people who were selling 10 properties as one unit. So they weren't selling them individually. You had to buy all 10 units. And coming from the GTA, I found it confusing. I couldn't understand it. I started since about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when I started down there. And once I understood, it all made sense. So if you have the ability to access 5 or 10 acres of land, you can build inexpensively many places, but you want to build for that rental market. And that's not only a Canadian, US opportunity. That opportunity exists also in the Caribbean. It exists in Jamaica, and it exists in Guyana. In Jamaica, there's Gore Homes, who builds a very basic product, but it works. It's a 1-bathroom home, about 850 square feet on a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot lot, and the price is below $100,000. I mean, it's come up a bit in the last 10 years, but when they first started building, when I first got into the business, those homes were around 55,000 US for one of them. So it allows you to get in, and you can basically buy it as an investor, and then you can rent it. In Guyana, the same opportunity also exists, where you can actually find yourself a few acres of land. As they build the infrastructure, the highways, etc., you find yourself a few acres of land, and you build a very simple product, 2-bathroom home, 800 square feet, where you are catering for a specific audience. So it's a very, very good niche to be in, and it's a great opportunity for those who want to test the investment market or the investment process without trying to buy. But you can build your own. You buy and build. You buy lots. We have a lot in Jacksonville that we bought 3 years ago that we plan to put. And our target audience is displaced veterans who are in housing crisis. So we want to keep. We're not building for high-end tenants or those in the who are just occupied. There are people who are struggling financially than more who are affluent. So if you want to do well, then you better serve catering to that market. And as you do well, you give back, back to that community, so that they too can have a better life and a better quality of life. Another risk is owner risk, and that's probably the most important one in my opinion. Perhaps you just aren't an investor. You're way out of your depth. You shouldn't be doing this. Just buy a house, live in it, buy a little car, go to work, come home, collect your pension, life goes on. It's just not your thing. You just aren't equipped to do this properly. You're always going to find yourself with always have a bad story. And for some reason, we hear a lot of those bad stories motivated because the people who are investing in business successfully are so busy being successful that they have no real time to share the bad stories. It's usually the 2 or 3 bad stories who get all the press. I know several very successful real estate investors who've done it for 30, 40, 50 years, right? And they've shifted their process as the market changes. Because as a real estate investor, you have to be able to pivot to navigate the evolving market. The markets are going to be constantly evolving, right? So you have to step back and do some introspection and some self-analysis to decide, are you capable of being a real estate investor? Are you capable of being a landlord? Are you capable of being a property manager? Are you capable of being a maintenance worker? Because all those things you have to do to be successful at investing. Because before you can hire tradespeople, many times you will have to be the one going there and fixing that yourself, or changing that faucet, or painting that unit over, instead of paying somebody hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it for you, because that's tapping in to your cash flow, right? So you really have to sit back and ask yourself, is this right for me? It's not way to make money. If you are dealing with average housing in most big cities across North America, you're dealing with very, very basic tenants. You're You got to have very good interpersonal skills to deal with them. Sometimes they deal with their own stresses, and sometimes it's transferred to you in the interaction, the conversation. You have to learn how to deal with those individuals because it can escalate very, very quickly. I saw a situation in New York a few months ago where a landlord, I think, killed his tenants in his home because of some kind of rent issue, right? No, that's an extreme situation, but you have to really ask yourself, am I the person to do this? Yes, your best friend has got 8 rental properties, or yes, your grandfather was a great real estate investor, your father owns 20 units, but can you do it, right? Is it part of your physiology to become a real estate investor? I think that's one of the first things that most investors should consider, and one thing that very few actually consider. So when you take your money out of your property, you leverage your property, and then put it into this rental property. But you are not investor, landlord, property manager material. And it's even worse if somebody tells you to buy a property somewhere in Wisconsin or some city you're unfamiliar with. Like, that's common today to have your portfolio all across North America, right? You've got a property in Sudbury and a property in Bowmanville, and you've got a property out in somewhere in Idaho, but you live in Brampton and you can't get to these properties, you know what I mean? And you don't know what you're doing out of your debt. And very, very quickly, you can lose $500,000, a few $1 million by doing this. So that is, to me, while I've got lower down on my list, I want to deal with the market risk for it because we're in this interest rate environment. Owner risk is probably the most important part of the real estate investor journey.
As a homeowner, does my property value increase with having renters instead of a person who has their home?
If the properties are in the same location, same postal code, same neighborhood, same half a kilometer radius, they should both increase at the same time. They are both maintained in a similar fashion. So the occupancy shouldn't make a difference, whether it's occupied by the owner or by a tenant. Now, in different geographic areas, obviously, market conditions come into play, and they can increase differently. I mean, one can increase at 8% per annum, one at 4%, one can remain flat because you don't have geographic issues to deal with. But the short answer to that question is no if they're in the same location. The long answer can become very, very complex, and I'll probably take us, but I'll be to answer that question for you. Asset risk is the property you're purchasing. Is it a money pit? Are you buying a property that is 100 years old, or the anticipation you're going to renovate it, and then you will, change it from 5 units into 12 units, increase your cash flow, increase your tenant base in that particular property and stuff like that. Or you buy a property without actually doing the necessary inspections and appraisals, and you find out that it's not what you bought. You buy a property sight unseen as an out-of-town community. You're in the Greater Toronto area. You buy a property out in Newfoundland. You've never gone to Newfoundland. You don't know what the neighborhood is like. You know what the property looks like, but it sounds like a great deal because it's $125,000. It's three units, and you find out for $900 a unit. And then you find out that the property needs a new roof. It's got structural issues in the foundation, and you find yourself in a property that you can't sell, and it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars to remedy those challenges. So understanding the asset is very important. How do you mitigate that? Find a bunch of trusted professionals. The appraisal is usually done on behalf of the lender. You don't have a lot of control in that process, but your realtor and your home inspector should be working for you. So your realtor should be able to analyze any property you're planning to purchase. They can be able to tell you what the current market rents are, what the potential market rents are. If you buy a home that needs work, if you invest $100,000 in renovations, will your new rental revenue offset that $100,000 liability plus your mortgage payments? If the property has issues with structure, or doesn't have issues with structure, with your home inspector have the ability to pick up things that can become a real problem in the future Fresh paint and new carpet hides a lot of stuff when it comes to buying investment properties. Here's something that I worked with a team several years ago. We did that a lot. We just paint the whole place over, change the light fixtures. They might come and think, oh, this place is beautiful. But sometimes, there were underlying issues. There may be, a plumbing issue with one of the things, but that sort of stuff. So you want to really understand the asset. I have bought property sight unseen, but I did the other things in the background with the inspection. I had a realtor who was a very close friend of mine, but I trusted very well to do the walkthrough for me. And while they did the walkthrough, today it's easy. You just take your cell phone and do a video, And I can tell you, I turn the faucet on, what's the toilet? Let me see what the garage looks like. And that sort of stuff. Let me walk around the basement, let me see what the foundation looks like. So it's easy if you're to buy sight unseen. But if you're a novice or a rookie investor, I would shy away from buying sight unseen. Today in Canada, many folks are buying out in the Calgary area, mostly new condos, and that's probably okay, because it's new construction. There's a warranty in the property from the builder. If it's being transferred from one buyer to the next on an assignment, you want to make sure that warranty is actually transferable, because it's a brand new home. The warranty might not be transferable. So if there's any lawyers in the audience here, they can probably verify that information, whether the warranty on the new construction is transferable from one investor to the next. And then the next risk is financial risk. Real estate is one of the world's most expensive products. You need money to invest. These ads around the place, invest no money. Become a landlord without any money. Use other money to invest. And it all sounds very good and very, very tempting, but it's bullshit. You can't invest without any money. You have to have money. You need money for your down payment. Sometimes if you own property already, you would have to come up with usually a 20% down payment to buy your first investment. If it's a multifamily property with 6 units or more, there are many programs that allow you to get less down payment, but you have to have usually experience. There's a whole questionnaire that the lender will provide you with when it comes to asking questions on what your capacity is to be a real estate investor and a landlord. But you have to have money. You can buy a property and something goes wrong, the appliances stop working, and that's not a huge expense. If you have no money, you have to go and borrow money from somebody else, or you bought one with no appliances inside, and all you had was your closing costs and your down payment. Sometimes 4 or 5 appliances, and that can cost you between $2,000 to $4,000. So even if that sounds to be a small, for a novice rookie investor, that payment and that $4,000 or $5,000 debt can make or break you. So if you put in that expense on a credit card or on a line of credit, you're now paying interest only, somewhere between 12 and 27%, depends on what kind of credit facility you use to pay that debt off. So, I would suggest that anybody, and that's one thing I tell clients all the time, and they come to me and they want to put this much money down on a property. We try to buy the property with the least money down and keep as much money in your pocket in the eventuality you have to do stuff. If you're buying property in an area that's being gentrified, you manage to find yourself a great deal on a nice home in Washington, D.C. or in Windsor or downtown Brampton or downtown Decatur or Georgia, or any city is going to gentrification. In order to now bring your value up, right, and increase your rent, you have to have money to change that property. And if you're buying, depends on your market, that can mean anything from $20,000 to hundreds of thousands of dollars, depends on the size of the property and the property values. So you will find a great property in a great location that has a lot of potential, but you actually change the property to increase the value, because the process is buy, renovate, refinance, repeat.
There's a comment here, I think, from something you shared a little while ago. Eunice says, Eunice says, I saw this happening in the early 80s when interest rates were at 18% and more, where people were overextended themselves and lost all their properties, including their principal homes.
Yeah, and that comment is so very accurate. That goes back to historical data. I came to Canada in the 80s. I came to Canada. So post financial crisis and inflation, you need to step back for a while and pull up some old Toronto Star newspaper and the Financial Post newspapers and go back and see what was happening in Toronto in the 80s. Right? There were people dropping the key for their homes at major lenders because they couldn't afford to pay. They walked away. There was zero vacancy rate for rent in Toronto in 1980 when I came to Toronto. You couldn't find a place to rent. So people were subleasing apartments. If I had an apartment anywhere in Toronto and I moved out of it, after I moved in, you want to win my apartment, and I would sublease my apartment to you. I didn't give it back to the landlord because it wasn't a racist thing. It was just everybody was dealing with this situation all across Toronto. So Ms. Grimm is actually very, very correct on that statement. And it's important for us to have all of a historical perspective when we make these broad sweeping statements today. The world's about to end. The folks who had homes in the 1980s, some lost their homes and some bought homes again. So whatever we're dealing with today, this too shall pass. I always tell people we are victorious against all of our worst experiences. The key is to have a strategy to navigate it. And if you don't know how to do it yourself, how to understand the risk you're dealing with, how to mitigate the risk you're dealing with, and find yourself professionals who can help you understand the process. Make rash decisions. Everything when it comes to real estate is cyclical. It will end soon. How resilient are you as an investor to ride in the storm out? If it was easy, everybody would do it. We'd all be wealthy real estate investors. Unfortunately, it is not easy. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of analysis, and you have to have some money to do it. You can't just go in with no money. You're going to have all these investment real estate properties all across the world and become a mega millionaire. It sounds easy. There's a lot of YouTube gurus who talk about us using this money and stuff.
Ray is available to speak with. His phone numbers are there on the screen. And also, 905 in Canada, 905-813-4354. US 904-586-5636. Even there's a toll-free number, 866-883-0885. Website, the McMillan Group Inc. inc.com. And then email address, raycmcmillan@gmail.com. Ray, do you have any final comments and thoughts before we let you get to the rest of your day?
Thanks again for this is our first conversation of 2024. I hope those who are listening are possibly thinking of investing. If they would like an unbiased approach, they're free to call me. You don't necessarily have to deal with us, but we are here to give you the perspective. I myself have had a lot of challenges with investment properties over the years. To avoid you making the same mistakes and point you in quote unquote the right area. It spans into many parts of the Caribbean, and it goes back to the 90s. So one of the fastest ways to create wealth is investing in the right real estate. And the right real estate is different for everybody. For some people, it's land. For some people, it's condominiums. For people, it's large apartment buildings. For some people, it's vacation homes. It all depends on what your interest is and what you can make it work. So not because Johnny and Debbie are buying beachfront condos, you're more interested in doing Section 8 housing, because that's what you understand based on your story. You don't want to get into beachfront condos because you're going to mess up royally, right? So, first of all, do the self-analysis. Real estate owner, and then really down your team. When I say team, I don't only mean lawyer, realtor, home inspector, and appraiser. I'm talking renovation crew. Learn some trades, learn how to change a faucet, change a light fixture, change a door lock, not either paint roller properly, drop some hardwood floors down or some laminate in the ground. Learn to do stuff. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. If you got to lift some carpet up, you get your kids in front of a person. Or if your kids are older, get them involved anyway. I mean, the kids should be involved in part of the legacy building process at any stage of their lives, as far as I'm concerned. The families are wealth, as we attach to their family. Because at the end of the day, when we check out, they're going to pick up the pieces, pick up where we left off. Take yourself too seriously. Well, there's some sad stories out there. There's a lot of folks who invest in real estate successfully without any challenges and doing it really, really well. I've met folks who can't speak English properly from parts of Europe who have bought properties all across the city. People can't even sign their name. They're basically functionally illiterate. They own tons of the right type of real estate based on what they know. So, I mean, go out there and start looking around, you know what I mean? Do some research in the city. Understanding market risk and location risk is very important. Today, the information is easy to access. You can go to any municipal website and get information on demographics, median incomes, education levels, owner to renter ratios, all sorts of information. And that will tell you whether or not the city is, or the location is conducive to you building a decent size rental portfolio. And if you need a second opinion, as I said, my email is on the screen, raymcmillan@gmail.com. Just send me a quick email. I'm willing to share 15 minutes to 30 minutes having a conversation with you. We can do it by Zoom or whatever platform, and I'll share my insights.
So Ray, thanks again as always. You take care of you and the family, and we will be in touch. At the bottom, you'll see all the places where you can watch the Morning Vibe replays. You can watch them on the Dr. Vibe Show, YouTube and Facebook. Also the Afro-Caribbean Business Network, Facebook and YouTube. And Ryan O'Neill Knight, YouTube and LinkedIn. So let's go through some of the roll call. Please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button so you get notified. I'm going to be posting some upcoming conversations, so you'll get notified ahead of time. Also follow the Dr. Vibe Show on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Please, to advertise your business, if you'd like, your business product or service, email me dr.vibe@the drvibeshow.com. Join the Morning Vibe Discord group. Email me dr.vibe@the drvibeshow.com. And as I said, coming up on this Monday's show, Faces by Pureness, makeup artist extraordinaire will be with us. Please, not only been doing it for years, that's a story, but she also hopefully will share some of her weight loss journey with us. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Blog Assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace. Don't just manage your time, and manage your energy. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith and walk good.
Here we go.